Hello everybody. Today we continue with Dart, and we continue with class, object, method, constructor in Dart programming language. In the previous lesson, we know about property, we know about variable, we know about list, etc. And in this lesson, we create a new file of Dart file, and I use a name like calculation. So calculation here is a module or file, a Dart file, and you can add more function variable inside this file. So you cut the property, you cut the function and paste into here. So the file can contain multiple line of code, multiple functions, variable, etc. And we import the calculation from the main .dart. And in this file, I can call some of the function and variable inside the calculation.dart. And there are some codes that we need to remove. And in this calculation to Dart, we can add more. So in this case, I add more Dart file, and I name this as class. So we define a class to a separate Dart file, and the class here can be, for example, car. We have a property of name, a year, production. We also have class of person, name, date of birth, etc. And we have the constructor. The constructor means a function is called when you create the object from the class. So the constructor has some of the property, name, year, production, and I assign the new object to the property by assigning name to the input name, assigning a year production to the year production property of or the argument of the constructor. And it is classical way. The classical way here is quite a simple, but we can have more ways to define the constructor. So how to init an object, how to initialize an object, how to create an object. We define an object named my car. My car here is an object name, and car here is a constructor. The constructor has the name, has the same name to class, and we define the name of method Maybach as class, and the year production is 2020. So we rerun the program again to see the output. So we display the my car object. Here is instance of my car. But in this case, I want to display the detail object of car. For example, name, year, production, not instead of car. It's not necessary. So we replace this code by my car.name and my car.year production, and use close. Yes, here use square bracket, use bracket like here, and we run the program, and you see in the right that the method Maybach as class salon and 20 and 20 and 2020. So this is a classical way, because we can use the toString function inside the object or inside the class car, and we call the function toString. Okay, so the toString default here, it only displays the instance of car, and you have to override or implement the toString function. We replace the return by we return this.name and minus and semicolon this year production. Okay, so we define the toString function. The toString function here is a function that display that return a string which represent the detail object. Yes, and in main dot no change. We only run again to see the result of toString. So the toString always returns string. Yes, and here we comment out this code, and we have new way. We have new way to initialize. It is shorter, easier to understand by writing car this.name, this.year production, and it is the same as with the classical way of defining the constructor. So after saving this file, the program is reloaded or refreshed, and then you can see the output. And so it is a constructor with name arguments. Name argument means that we see the property name beside the value, and here we always add bracket here, this dot name comma this dot year production, and close. Okay, and what is the way to call this function? This constructor we change a little bit by clicking to main dot and change. So I change this to name semicolon and year production. Yeah, okay, so it is very easier to see, to understand how many property inside this class. And so here it is also called the Flutter style. The Flutter style, each property is in separate line, each property and value in a separate line. Okay. So in main.dat and car.dat, I can define more property, define more method or function inside this class, and it is. And what about the default parameter? The default parameter is a parameter that automatically assigned when you left blank. When you left the property blank, it automatically assign a default value. So in this case, the year production has a default value of 2020. Okay, so if you left it, or if you miss this property, so the property will be 2020. Okay, so in this case it is a default value, or the default value always not null. So it protects you from assigning null value for a specific property. Yes, and otherwise, if the property is different from the default, then the property will be the new value, not the default value. We have an annotation. The annotation at require. At require means you should add the property to this. You had and you should add the value to this property. Otherwise, or if you don't give it value, it throw warning. It will display warning. So require means not null. Okay. So in main.dat, you can also here, and the name here, if you comment now and you run the program, then the output will throw a warning. It warning about that you must add value to this, or it is required. It is required. Or require here is annotation. Yes, annotation. So what about the car? The toString, and we assign new property to this, and in this case the name is required. Yes, it always give you the warning, display the warning to prevent from heading. Yes, early warning again. So in main.dart you can also you must enter the name property. So comment this again and run the program again, and performing the new value. We have the my kind memory, and then you can initialize more car objects inside the main. So we can add more property or function inside the car class. For example, we define a function name do something. The do something function here can only print something to the console, or for example, we print out I am doing something, etc., and run again, and so it is a function with a return value. We call the function by mycar.function name. The syntax is here is similar to many other programming language. So mycar.do something, the program will display to the console that I am doing something. Yes, and we define the method with name argument. Yes, it's quite simple. For example, void say hello, and in this function we define the string person name. Person name here is the argument or the input parameter of this function. Yes, and we print to the screen hello, concatenate the string with person name. So we call this by mycar.sayHello. Parameter here is 1. Example. Yes, quite simple about this function. About to how to define a function. This is quite simple in Dart. Yes, and run again. So we have hello 1. Okay, so it is normal function or classical function. The function with parameter, and if you want to add a name argument, you can use open and close bracket. Open and close bracket allow you to add a name or label here. For example, person name 1. Okay, so the second way is more clearly to read your code. For other person who want to read your code, he or she can understand what the argument you add into, or you add inside the function or method. We can also add a function as a variable. We define a variable with type function, and this variable can can reference to a function. So I can call this, I can assign this to a function. Yes, I assign the handle event type to a function. Yes, it means that you can implement the function inside one file or one object, and you call the function from another object. Okay, so the function is called running between this object and another object. It can be placed in this object and run in another object. Yes, it's quite convenient when you want to transmit from some object or property from this object to another object. Yes, it's quite clear to understand. So here we have I am doing something and we have a handle in main. It will display handle in main, but we call this from the object of the car object. Yes, it's quite clearly. Okay, so this lesson now is end. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye and see you next time.